morning, everybody. My name is Dan Thompson. I'm the product manager for Igus Energy Chains. I'll be walking us through the new configuration tool that we've come out with, and then also the 36-month guarantee program that we've had for a while, but that dovetails with our new configuration tool and how it can provide a guarantee benefit for you. So the majority of today's webinar is going to take place online at the Igus website. So I'll jump over there now. And the configurator tool that we're going to be working with is located in the tools section of the Igus homepage under the cable carrier section, and it's called the E-Chain Expert Configurator. So we'll log in here. So we're going to walk through two different options here. One says about the application parameters, and the other says the E-Chain already exists. So we'll start with the application parameter option, and then we'll go through this option second. Essentially, this is a longer step process where you're configuring the E-Chain that will be used, and then also the cables and separation. And the second option here is where you already know what the E-Chain is, you just need to populate it with cables. So we'll start by clicking into this one. And I'll clear out this cable pool. So essentially what happens is this will be an 8-step process, as we'll see across the top, with each of the steps that we'll take to configure the E-Chain. And the first step that we'll do is we'll load all of the cables and hoses that we have in this application into the tool, and they'll populate over here in the cable pool section. So there's a number of different ways that we can populate cables into this application. The first is if you already know the Igus cable that you use. So for example, I'll say a CF5-07-12, and it will pop up an Igus CF5-07-12. I'll click that. It will give me this option, and I can add it to the pool. So it will also ask me what the excess cable lengths are coming out of the moving end and the fixed end. So I'll say I have 5 feet coming out of each end, no special labeling, and I'll say that I have 3 of those cables, and I'll add them to the cable pool, and they'll populate over here. The next option is to select the chain flex cable if I don't know the Igus part number, but I know the electrical details I need. So for example, I can come down here, and let's say that I need a 4 conductor by 10 gauge. So I'll click that, and it will populate a number of different Igus cables that we can use for this electrical configuration, 4 by 10 gauge. So I can pick the CF130 series, CF130 US, 140 US, CF9, CF9 UL. And it will give me some details about these different cables in terms of their bend radius factor, their diameter, their jacket material, and their price in terms of dollars per foot. So I'm going to select a CF9. I have the same inputs here for 5 feet, 5 feet. And let's say that I have 2 of those. And I'll add those to the cable pool. The next option would be what Igus calls a ready cable, and that is a pre-connectorized cable assembly. We offer these harnessed according to a number of different drive manufacturers' standards. So we have some options here: Allen Bradley, Fanuc, Festo, Heidenhain, Siemens, a number of different manufacturers. So for example, let's pick Siemens, and we can select from a variety of different manufacturer part numbers. So we can cross essentially any of these Siemens cable part numbers. So we'll select one here. It'll give us a little bit of detail about it: the number of cores, cross section, diameter. We have the same option here for the breakout. So we'll say 5 feet, 5 feet. It'll ask us which type of connector is desired at which end. So it asks for the fixed end call out. So we'll say we want the female connector on the fixed end, so that that instruction will transmit to Igus so that we know how to build it. And we'll say that we have 2 of those. We'll add those to the pool as well. And then the third option here is called third-party cable as a placeholder. This is a non-Igus cable. If you have a air hose or a hydraulic line or even another manufacturer's electrical cable, you can input those details here and populate it into the cable pool. So let's say we have an air hose, and we'll just call it air hose. We have the same excess lengths of 5 and 5, and we'll say it has a minimum bend radius of 6 inches. It has a diameter of 1 inch. It weighs 0.5 pounds per foot, and we have 2 of those. And we'll add that. So now we've populated essentially our entire list of cables that we need in this application. So we're ready to move to the next step. So we'll click the next button. And this will give us an option for how we want the chain to be installed. If it's going to be an unsupported configuration like this, a gliding chain, or for a longer travel where the chain comes down, glides on itself, or something operating in a vertical configuration. So we're going to say, and it will ask us a couple parameters about the application. So we'll say that the maximum speed is going to be 60 feet per minute, an acceleration of 1 foot per second squared, and we will say that it does 30 strokes an hour. It'll ask us for a travel distance, so we'll say 50 feet. It'll have an option here for the Igus standard is to always mount the fixed end in the center of travel. That's the most efficient configuration. It uses the least amount of chain for the lowest cost. But there is an option here to click this box and add an offset from center if you want the cables to be routed in dead chain for a specific period of length. We're not going to use that, but that option is there. It'll ask us for the ambient temperature. We'll leave it at ambient temperature of 68 degrees. And then it will ask us if we want a chain, a tube, or if we want to browse both chain and tube. So a chain refers to an open style energy chain with crossbars. A tube refers to an enclosed energy chain with lids. So if you have something that has hot chips, debris, things that you want to protect the cables from, you can select tube. Or if you want to browse both chain and tube, you can select that. For now, we're going to leave it with chain. There's also some additional filters here that you can choose to use if you like, that will allow you to put in for space restrictions. So if you have an application where you have to fit all of the cables in a chain that is, say, 6 inches wide, you can put in a 6-inch restriction for this B dimension here, and it will restrict the system to chains that are only 6 inches wide. You have an option here for if you have a desired opening principle of the E-chain. So if you want it to open on the inside radius, the outside radius, both sides, or if you want it to be fully enclosed. And then you can also add dimensions for the E-chain itself. And these will essentially all serve to restrict the selections to just what you've selected dimensionally. I'm not going to use any of those for this example, but they're also there if you like. So we're now good to proceed to the next option, and that just gave me an error because I was still on unsupported and not on the gliding chain. So I need to make sure I have gliding chain selected, and I should be able to move to the next step. And it will now give me a number of different energy chains that I can use for this particular application, and it will give them to me in order of size and cost. So the smallest energy chain that we would consider recommended for this application would be the 2700 series, and it has the lowest price on the list of around $20.53 per foot. This will give us options all the way up to our largest chain, so our 800 series, which has a 9-inch interior height at nearly $300 a foot. That's a far larger chain than necessary for this application, but it will essentially allow you to choose from increasingly larger chains and essentially just cap off a minimum size. It's the smallest that we would recommend that would work for this application. And it will also give us options down here for the service life that we would expect out of this E-chain system. So we see a number of different options here for both bending radius and interior width, interior height, and some different service life calculations in the neighborhood of 2.7 to 3 million strokes. Now it will give me a chain service life right here. As of right now, it's not giving me a total system service life. The system service life refers to E-chain and cables, and the reason why it's not giving me a total system service life is because in step 1 I had a non-Igus hose, that pneumatic hose that I had added to the cable pool. We don't theoretically know the manufacturer's recommended lifetime on that because it's not an Igus cable. If that was not present in the cable pool, then it would give us the same value over here, or potentially higher or lower as required by the cables. But that's going to give no result for a application that has non-Igus material in it. So for certain configurations, it will populate an automatic configuration. For this particular one, there is no automatically suggested configuration, so it will allow us to go to the next step and essentially just populate an empty box. But what I can do is I can also pick through, if say I see this 3 million, I say I want something with a slightly higher lifetime, I can start to go up to the next series. So if I say, let's say I want an H432 chain, we'll give it a moment, and it will populate with the values of H432. H432 is a heavier duty series, a heavier duty chain from our E4 product line. And you can see now in the E4 line, we now have a lifetime of around 9 million cycles. So you can play with this and select different chains. I'm going to move forward with the E432. And you can see in this application, this has been able to determine a automatic cable fill for this particular cable package. So it's automatically populated us with separators. Sometimes, again, depending on the application parameters, it will give us an option with a shelf or an option with several different configuration options that you can choose from. In this particular case, we have one automatically proposed option. And then you can also come over here, and if you say, I don't want it to be automatically filled, I want to position the cables myself, you can click the empty box and move to the next step. So I'm going to leave it on this option right now. I'll move to the next step, and you can see that it's automatically filled with all of the cables and hoses that are needed in here. Now I do have the ability to change this if needed. If I say, hey, I don't really like the automatically prepared configuration, I need my encoder cables to be on this side of the chain, I'm able to pull things out of the chain and move them around. So I can move this encoder cable over to here, and I can come over here and grab another separator and click this and click. I can add that, grab another separator. I can use these arrows to move the cables around so that they're as close to their separator as possible. Now you can see that the configurator does automatically include a little bit of clearance. You can see a little bit of white space between the separator and the cable. That's the Igus recommended clearance of 10% around the cable, so it will automatically calculate for that. And I can move things around as needed and hit the down arrow, pull everything down. If I also decide that, hey, I want to leave a little bit of spare space in here for future expansion, I can come over here and say, make my E-chain 212 millimeters instead of the 187 that it was, and I can change this width accordingly. I can move things around, I can create another compartment, and do whatever is needed to configure these cables and put them in a place where I'm happy with them. So with that, once I'm happy with how the chain is configured and how the cables are placed in, there's an option here where I can kick out a CAD file of this interior separation, and I'll show that now. And there'll be another place to be able to do that further along in the tool, but I'll show it right now. It'll take a moment to load, but essentially what that will do is it'll give us a 3D file of a couple of links of the given energy chain and the cables inside of them. So that can be used to be populated into an engineering drawing or for reference of exactly what that link will look like. So as it loads here, this is essentially what the file will look like. And you can look at it from the side, you can look at it from the corner. So essentially 2 links with the cables inside. You can download this step file, SolidWorks, whatever it is that you need to pull into your CAD program for drawings. So if we go back here, we're ready to move on to the next step in the configuration. And that's going to be the mounting brackets. So we have an option for, this is our standard bracket set for this series. It's known as the KMA brackets, KMA bracket style, and we offer that in a pivoting and locking configuration. So with this being a horizontal application, we recommend the pivoting brackets as indicated by the note here. The locking bracket is recommended for vertical travels, and that's indicated by that note. So this being horizontal, we'll leave it as pivoting. And then we have an option to either include or not include a C profile, which is a metal profile rail that's integrated into the bracket that can be used for strain relief. We have a number of strain relief accessories that clip into this rail that can be used to secure the cables. So we'll go with the C profile. And the C profile can be installed in different places within the bracket. So you can see I can click through these different configurations, and I can say I want the rails on the outside radius, I want it on the inside of the moving end, the outside of the fixed, and through the different configurations. And I can also say I want profile rails on both. So A2 is the most common configuration with the profile rail on the outside radius and the fixed end, and the inside radius and the moving end. So that's what we're going to leave it at for this example, and then I can move on. So the next step in this process is going to be the guide trough system. So with this being a long travel gliding system, it gives us the opportunity to select a guide trough system. So we have options for the aluminum or steel guide trough system, and we have options for the installation kits, which is this component right here, how the trough is attached to the substructure. We can do a standard assembly kit that includes this sub rail right here. We can do a standard kit without the rail if the customer is going to attach just these clamps directly to the substructure. And we have a heavy duty option with the same with or without the C profile included. We will use a standard glide bar, and we have a fixed end module that will allow us to mount the bracket down to the trough system. So it will give us a parts list of exactly what we need for this travel. So we need 3 pieces of this guide trough, we need 5 pieces of this style of guide trough, we have 9 installation kits, and we have 1 fixed end module, and that will add it to this configuration. So we can move on. And now the final step in this process is the strain relief selection. So as of right now, this is still being developed. In the future, this will be another configuration screen where you'll be able to drag and drop individual strain relief elements onto the cables that will be sized specifically for what they need. As of right now, that feature is not released yet. It's still being developed. So this screen, as of right now, allows you to add strain relief components to your order, but it is not necessarily intelligent in selecting the strain relief cable components for the cable. So if you already know what strain relief components you like to use and need to add, you can add them from this list here. So we have some strain relief clamps, we have some tie wrap plates. So I'm just going to add a couple of tie wrap plates. Let's say I need 4 of those. It'll give me a little picture of what it looks like, and I can add those to the list. Now, not overwhelmingly intelligent at the moment, but this will become something where we have a list that will show exactly what the parts and pieces are for each individual cable. As of right now, it's just an ability to add some additional parts to your shopping cart. And that will complete the configuration. We can click next, and that will bring us to our final result. Now, assuming that all of the components that are needed in that system are within the Igus online library, it will kick out a price right there. And from this screen, you can directly add to a shopping cart or request a quotation from Igus. So click either one of these buttons. It will pull up a box with your to put in your information, email address, company name, and you can either order it directly or request a formal quotation or a discussion with an Igus representative. If you've done this configuration, you aren't quite sure, you think you've gotten it right, but you aren't quite sure, you want Igus to take a look at it, just hit that request quotation button. It will go to an Igus representative, and we can contact you and kind of go over everything that's selected and make sure that it's the right solution for the application. We also have a couple of buttons down here that will allow you to request a sample of the chain. We have another 2 buttons for a CAD file here. So if I click this button, that will bring me right back to the same file I had shown previously. There's just another opportunity to generate this internal separation configuration. And then I can click CAD of the E-Chain itself, and this will give me the larger file of the overall E-Chain system. And it will take a short moment to generate, but this will essentially be the entire gliding chain in the loop with its travel extremes. So here we go. Now we have a 3D model that we can download of the chain and its gliding configuration. And for anyone who's familiar with the Igus CAD site, we have options here on how, and you can change certain attributes of this. You can change the positioning of it. You can add and remove brackets. You can do different things to manipulate the file as you need it to be. If we go back over here, we have an option to download the configuration and parts list as a PDF file. So we'll click on that, and it will load momentarily, and it will bring up a dialog box to download a configuration. So if we save this and open it up, it will give us a PDF output of what we just did. So it will give us the parts list and a sketch of what it is that we configured. So this can also be used for documentation purposes and engineering submittal. This is another link to generate the same, a similar drawing and parts list, just in a different format. This option right here allows us to link to the Igus webpage to the given energy chain that we had selected. So we had selected the H432, so we can read more about it, read about some accessories, some different options, essentially the general product page on the chosen energy chain. And then the last option is a save configuration button. So you can click this and you'll download a file essentially of all the work that's been done in this configuration. If you have done all this work but you're not quite ready to order, or it's a preliminary project, you can download that configuration, and that will allow you to load it back up and work on it at a later date. You can also send it over to an Igus guy. If you're working with your Igus representative, you can send this to him and he can open this up, and essentially you can pass work back and forth by downloading the configuration, saving it into a file, and then passing it back and forth, or restarting it with an additional a later session. So that is essentially the start to finish on the overall if I already know or the configuration based on application parameters. So the other option will be if I already know the energy chain. We have a lot of customers that have a couple of standard energy chains that they typically use. So they always know they're standardized on 5 sizes, and they're going to pick from one of those 5 sizes, and they just need to populate it with cables and see how the cables are going to fit in. So that's the second scenario. So we'll navigate back to the tool the same way that we got there to begin with, and instead of clicking into about the application parameters, we'll say the E-Chain already exists. So it will warn me that by changing the entry point, the expert will be reset. So essentially the 8 steps that we've done up at the top, that information will be wiped out, but it will also let me know that the cable pool will be maintained. So I'll confirm the change. And now I still have my same cable pool up here, but now I have a 5-step process instead of an 8-step process. That application selection process has been taken out. And I can add additional cables in here if I see necessary. For now, I'm going to just proceed with the same cable pool that I had and proceed to the next step. That will bring me to this screen where I can select an energy chain. So if I already know that my company is standardized on, say, the E4-56-20-300 energy chain, I can type that in and it will pull up this option, and it will automatically give me a box that I can start to pull cables into. So I have my cable pool here, and I can start to pull cables in, and I can start to grab separators from the side. So we have a number of different separation options. There is essentially 2 generations of separators that fit within the same energy chains. For many years, Igus had 1 generation of separators, and then maybe 7 years ago, we came out with a new and improved generation of separators. But as of right now, we still support both generations. Some customers prefer the older style, some like the newer ones. So both are listed in here. The standard separator, the most common vertical separator that we'll use, is indicated by a star right here. So I can drag this into place and drop one here. And what will happen is, as I have this separator highlighted, it will show me the components that are part of that family and that generation that are compatible with one another. So as this is dropped in, I'll see that I have a shelf over here, and I have this range of separators that's highlighted. So these all belong to the same, essentially, family or generation. So I have a similar style separator that has a narrow top, one that's narrow top and bottom. I have one that's asymmetrical that will be wider on one side and narrower on the other. I have an option that will lock into divisions on the crossbar. So you can see, as this one, if I don't want this separator to move, you can see that a scale pops up on the top, and this will essentially increment in given indentations, whereas this style can move. If I uncheck the click into place, this style can essentially move freely all the way across. So I'll pull those out, and then I'll show that for the alternate generation of separators, if you're a customer who prefers the older style generation, such as these right here, I can pull and drop a side plate in, and then it will in the same way highlight the components that fit with this. So I can pull this in right here. I can click separator into place if I want to use a shelf, and it will tell me what size shelves I can use, and then I can come up here and I can grab a shelf and drop it in. You can pull that shelf out and I can click it a little farther over and it will set to, again, an available width of shelf. You can play around with that and make this look the way that I want it to. If I say I pull in, so I'll pull in an air hose, pull in another air hose. And what will happen here is that you'll see that this air hose is black, it's a solid color. These two are light colored, and if I click here, you'll see they're highlighted in red. And if I click on one of the ones that's highlighted in red, it will give me an error message. So essentially it's telling me that we don't like to see these two cables and hoses in here without any separation, because this cable can roll over, it can cause tangling and problems over the lifetime. So it's going to give me an error until I pull in the separator and essentially constrain these two so that one can't cross over the other. And now we're good to go, and that both are fully constrained. And then we can also change bend radii. So we can change to, for example, right now we're on a 300 millimeter bend radius, which allows for, essentially it's a very safe bend radius that will be kind to all of these cables. So I need to try and shrink it down, and I select 135 millimeter bend radius. What will happen here is that these will now be highlighted in red, and the reason for that is because the bend radius of the chain is too small. So it will identify the fact that I put in a 6-inch bend radius when I created this hose, and now the bend radius field is too small for the rating of that hose. So I can come back over here, change it back to 300, and we'll be okay. And I can pull in some additional cables here, and I can start to add additional separators. So I'll use a narrow one here, and I'll click this off so I can slide it. I can slide around, and I'll use another couple of these narrow ones. So I can really configure the chain however it is that I like, and then I can use the arrows, pull everything down. I have the same options here for the CAD file of the interior separations, and then click along. And these remaining screens will be the same as what we've already walked through. So we have the bracket selection, and then we have the strain relief selection, and then we get to the result. So again, we have a price we can add to the shopping cart, request a quotation, and download all of the same options. So two different ways that the tool can be used if you either know the energy chain you're going to use, or if you want the tool to suggest a specific energy chain based on the lifetime. Now that the Igus energy chain has been configured, it's able to be purchased. You saw in the first route through, there was some lifetime calculation data. So a relatively new thing that Igus is offering is that lifetime calculation is now fully guaranteed by Igus for up to 36 months. So I'm going to pop back over to the slideshow here, and I have a short video to play of the Igus test lab. So Igus operates by and large the largest test lab in the cable management industry, the cable carrier industry, and we conduct an incredible amount of tests every year, and we convert those tests and those test results into data that we feed into our lifetime calculator, which allows us to predict with a high degree of certainty the minimum lifetime of a cable carrier. So I'll play the video here, and this test lab is located at Igus headquarters in Cologne, Germany. It's a 41,000 square foot test lab, and there'll be some statistics that are shown about it. You'll see all the different types of test machines that we have, robots, linear travels, rotational travels. So all these machines move back and forth and back and forth. They're Igus energy chains filled with Igus cables. So we're testing both our cable and our cable carriers simultaneously. And we're able to gather a huge amount of data from these tests, so we can reliably predict the lifetime of really any Igus cable or any Igus cable carrier in a wide variety of different applications. This is one of our larger test machines that we use to test the long crane type systems. We have robots that test our robotic systems. Some more long travel systems, high-speed systems. Some of our multi-axis chains. Twister band, which is a specialized rotational movement, rotational product. Some of our testing software that we use. These are some special tests that are set up in unique motions for specific customer applications. We have a cold chamber to test things at very low temperatures. So from all this data, we're able to create a lifetime calculator. And now that lifetime calculator is able to put forth a guaranteed lifetime for a given energy chain system. So again, we will jump back over to the Igus website. Hopefully you guys all still might have my screen. Stop me if you don't. But under the tools section here, where we previously were for the expert configurator, we're now going to go to the service life calculator. So the service life calculator will allow us to calculate a service life, essentially a standalone service life calculation for an energy chain system, and it will spit out a guaranteed lifetime down at the bottom here. So we're going to create a trial system. So we'll pick an E41 energy chain. And it just takes a quick moment. And we'll say we're going to do something that's an E442 series. We'll pick our width and bend radius. So let's say we're call it a 20 millimeter width or 200 millimeter width with a 250 millimeter bend radius. It'll give us the stats on that particular chain over here. We can choose whether it's an unsupported or gliding application. So we'll say a gliding application. Say it has an acceleration of 1 foot per second squared. Say it has a speed of 1 foot per second. Say it has a fill weight of 2.5 pounds per foot. We'll say it has a travel distance of 50 feet or 600 inches. And we can then say calculate, and it will calculate for us that this given energy chain has a lifetime of 5.2 million strokes, double strokes, that's there and back. So then we have a couple of options down here. We have the option for a catalog page of the given series. We can save this as a PDF file. So if I click on this here, it'll give me the option to download a PDF file, and this will open this, which is essentially just the documentation of what we just calculated. This does not go to Igus. This is just essentially a static printout of the calculator, which you can save for your own records. But what we have over here is the ability to request a 36-month guarantee certificate. So if I request this, I can type in my name, my company, my email address, the type of machine, and agree to the regulations, and click submit. And that will send an email both to you and to Igus with the details of this calculation. So I've done that previously, and this is what the email looks like. So it says, thank you for using the Igus service life calculation. Enclosed, you'll find your guarantee certificate. So if I open the attachment here, I get a certificate that looks like this, that will say that Igus guarantees the given E-chain for 36 months. This particular energy chain, under these conditions, it has the name of the machine, it's a gliding application, and these are the same parameters that we put in. And say that the service life guarantee of 5.2 million double strokes. Service life guarantee is valid for the specified number of strokes or up to 36 months after the delivery date of that system. So a copy of this will be emailed to you, and a copy of it will also be stored in the Igus database, so that if ever you do need to make a claim, you can reference your warranty certificate number that's listed up here, and that will allow a traceability back to the Igus warranty system. And as stated down below, in the event of a valid warranty claim, Igus will offer a complete full replacement of all of the material that experiences the problem. Obviously, we don't expect our systems to really ever need this warranty. Because of all of the testing that we do, we're extremely confident in the lifetime numbers that we put forth. But it can be helpful for someone, whether if you're a new customer of Igus and need some confidence to stand behind this technology, or maybe you're using an alternate system like a festoon or a cable reel, and you need some some backup as to how long is the system going to last. Is it guaranteed? Now Igus is willing to give you a guarantee certificate to confirm it will hit a minimum lifetime, and if it doesn't, we will reimburse you with a complete replacement product. So that is pretty much the gist for today's webinar for the configuration tool and the guarantee program.